Alright class, let's get going. Topic, Age of Exploration and Conquest. Essential question, how did the Europeans' drive for resources change the rest of the world? Some of the causes. God, glory, and gold, the big three. Spain and Portugal tried to break the Italian monopoly on the Middle East. Italians had been for quite a while experiencing, all of the spice trade that had come through from the Middle East, and they had a lot of money. Advances in navigation and shipping, the compass, astronomy, all helped navigation because at this time nobody had ventured around Africa to look for a passage to the east. Cartography, or the study of maps or map making, advances as well as people started to make the globe, a round globe. This was something new at the time, were new. Portuguese caravel, lighter, faster ships suited for exploration, improved sail, rope, rudder, cannons, and more. So there were a lot of advances in shipping during this time. Now Portugal had Prince Henry the Navigator. He financed several expeditions to Africa, so these are state-sponsored, or the king or the prince himself is actually giving money to people to head south. He also had a school in which he set up to be able to study, and they brought in the cartographers, the people, map makers, people, scientists, to all try to better the sailing practices. Now, some of the Portuguese, Bartholomew Diaz, 1450 to 1500, rounded the southern tip of Africa, 1488. Vasco da Gama, 1498, sailed all the way to India, brought back Indian goods, and caused a blow to the Italian monopoly. So it was da Gama who really started things going to try to move to the east around Africa. Amerigo Vespucci explored Brazil, first European to finally realize, we had Columbus there in 1492, but he was the first European to realize that they discovered a new continent. And America used the name New World, so they named the New World America. Brazil, Portugal's major colony in the New World. Now Spain, explorers, Christopher Columbus, 1451 to 1506. He was an Italian, but was convinced the King of Spain to compete with Portugal. He had to sail west. 1492, he reached the Bahamas, thinking it was India, and he went to his deathbed thinking that he had discovered India. Ushered in an era of new European exploration, which was huge at that time. All right. Bartholomew de las Casas was a priest who criticized the ruthlessness with which Columbus treated the native people. Remember, at this time, when these Europeans saw these native people, they didn't consider them humans. They considered them more like animals, and they could treat them however they wanted. And they did not treat them very well at all. They put them to work as slaves. If they were willing to convert to Christianity, that was one thing, but for the most part they were treated terribly. The Treaty of Tordesillas, 1494, Pope Leo V helps put through the treaty that divides the New World: east Portugal, west Spain. And that was roughly down the eastern part of South America, and that is why Portugal controlled Brazil, and their main language today is Portuguese. All right, the Golden Age of Spain. Colonies operated in the New World to boost the monarchy and country of Spain. Gold, silver mines, send millions of bullion home. Spain forces natives to work, and when we say work, we say very loosely they were considered as slaves. Spain went into the New World and they conquered the New World. They didn't just go there and set up trading posts or places where they could use to move from one colony to another. They took over the entire area. And that is different from what happened in Africa. Now, mestizos were Spaniards who married Amerindians, women, creating a new mixed class. Now, old imperialism, and we'll get to new imperialism later on in the course, but old imperialism, European countries establishing posts or forts on coastal ports in Africa and Asia. And this was different than how Spain did it in the New World. Portugal, the Netherlands, became dominant in this area pertaining to trade. So as Africa and Asia became more readily accessible from shipping, they set up little ports of call on each one of these locations where they could do trading. France and England focused more on North America, but later. So they kind of came into the picture a little bit later. Now, the slave trade. So many natives died in the New World that Portugal introduced slavery to Brazil. It spread then north into the Caribbean as the sugarcane crop spread north and people wanted to make money. Approximately 50 million slaves between the 17th and 18th century. 50 million slaves. That's a lot of people coming out of Africa. All right, the Columbian Exchange. The exchange of goods, diseases, ideas, products between European people and the Americas. Most impact was disease. 90% of Native Americans died after the Europeans came to the New World. Smallpox, measles, plague, typhus. The Native Americans had not been exposed to this, and thus, once one person in the tribe got it or whatever, it spread throughout the entire area, and millions of people died. Now, some of the products, the potato brought to Europe became the #1 staple, especially in areas like Ireland. Corn, tobacco, chocolate also brought to Europe. To the Americas, we had things like wheat, pigs, coffee, and horses. And horses would play a huge role in the impact of Native American Plains Indians. When the Spaniards came to current-day Latin America, Mexico, some of the horses got freed. They were able to migrate to the north, and over hundreds of years, the Plains Indians made great use of the horse. Now, in society during this time, most people were still farmers, but merchants in cities began to grow, a middle class. But also during this time, we also had some superstitious people that began witch hunts. Between 70,000 and 100,000 people were killed between 1400 and 1700. The belief in magic, claims of the devil, women were weaker. 80% of the victims during this time were women. So this is a wrap-up of the age of exploration and conquest. Remember, take good notes. History's no mystery.